Hey everybody, welcome to the Enhance Your World Show. I'm your host, Chris Alba. Welcome, and aloha to 2024 and aloha to 2025. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to be here today and continue this show into the 2005 year. I'm looking forward to sharing stories and insights and interviews with people from all over the world. And today we're going to talk about it's all energy. So, what does it mean? And aloha was really the inspiration of it. And according to some of the ways to use the word aloha, which I absolutely love because, it does mean hello. I mean, this is a common usage of it. It means hello. It means goodbye. It means to love, and from my understandings, and I did a little research on the deeper cultural meanings, which a few years ago I got certified in Ho'oponopono, and these teachings really were profound for me, and they made some huge shifts within my life. And of course, life is here to help us grow. Maybe not in the ways that we want to, but the ways that we need to, because we all have this ego perception, right? The way we identify with life, the way we move through it. And, it's a lens, that maybe helps us with clarity in the infinite abundance of everything, in the void. Anything is possible. Source is the manifested form of the abundance. So our goal within this egoic life maybe is to learn how to bend our beliefs, to be curious and deepen our interconnectedness with ourselves and each other and the planet. But the cultural meaning, according to ChatGPT, is more than a word. It embodies a philosophy and a way of life. It signifies the compassion and respect, treating others with kindness, empathy, and mutual respect. Connection, acknowledging the interconnectedness of all beings and the world. Harmony, living in balance with nature and others, fostering peace and well-being. And the spirit of giving, approaching life with generosity and an open heart. The literal translation of alo means presence, front, or face, and ha means breath or life force. So together they can be interpreted as the breath of life, or sharing life in the present moment. And this helps us if we just use this one word as a guiding principle to help conduct ourselves in kindness, humility, patience, and unity. And, I look at so many different teachings and all the things that are going on in the world and, all this different stuff. And it shows you both sides of consciousness, where people are living in love and where people are living in scarcity or fear or an attempt to control. How this life shows up and parts that we play and how people play the roles in our lives, and really learning to deepen those levels of compassion and understanding, not only for ourselves but for other people, will allow us to raise the frequencies uh, of our being, and our whole being of spirit, mind, and body, right? That's the Holy Trinity. And so everything comes from source, right? Everything comes from spirit. Everything comes from the higher power, or whatever the identity you have with it, universe, God, creator, um, all those, they're labels. And so the frequency of the labels and language that we use allows us to connect with other human beings in a mental way. And based on how we have a relationship, again, it's all energy. So mind and then the emotions is the bridge into our body, because we feel emotions. And then we're able to label them as sadness, as grief, as happiness, as joy, as uh, uh, excitement, or as anxiety, or those types of things. And um, that's where the work happens. Nothing shows up in our life that doesn't contain energy, which is the things that we have to let go, the things that we didn't like, and move towards a higher thing. Now, that doesn't mean a bypass. That doesn't mean cutting people out of our lives or trying to get to a place to where we don't see difficulty. It's that we're experiencing difficulty without losing ourselves in the process, without becoming overwhelmed and emotional. And we're able to stay centered and grounded in our bodies and our physical realities, so we can move within life in a harmonious way. And there's so many beautiful teachings on how to do that, from tantra to native teachings to Ho'oponopono to religions. If if studied from a practitioner level, not a theological, not just a theory, not just in the mind, and I think that's a lot of our disconnect, is we've created these stories and these realities in our mind, and when things aren't showing up the way we were anticipating them to, intending them to, expecting them to, however you choose to define it, those are our tests. And everything is always in flux, right? Time and space are a dynamic of energy. And we just finished up a calendar year of 2024, and all the blessings and challenges and growth and love and joy and happiness and sorrow and grief and all the dynamics of our humanness has been expressed. But how can we sit in the essence of today? How can we be fully present to the opportunities of how we can grow as an individual, how we can grow as a collective, if we don't see, if we're indifferent? Oh, it doesn't matter. Can't do anything about that. That's one way of mastering your energy, is understanding what you can and can't control, which is how you think, feel, and act. That's what we're here to master as human beings, right? Being human, we are part of nature. We're not separate from nature. We have this ability to have hindsight and insight, right? Which helps us navigate beyond the consciousness level of any other thing in our nature. And this can get really complex. This can get really, you can go down rabbit holes your whole life. Trust me. from sciences to religions to spiritual teachings to just everyday life to how business works to, it's all, they all have these universal principles. They all have these core things. And for about a decade now, I've been teaching the Gauge Your Life program. And that's built on the principles of gratitude, awareness, unity, growth, and energy being that we are energy, and how we're able to handle adversity shows the strength of our roots, and how we're able to elevate into the heavens is our creativity. And when we feel like we can't do something based on our physical circumstances, that can be disempowering, or you're criticized by your partners and your loved ones and the people who care about you because, you're trying to do something that they can't see or feel themselves, because that's not part of why they came here. Now, part of their role in the relationship is to nurture and support us and each other on our missions to bringing all of that into manifestation. And that's going to break apart the corporate structures and the things that we've been developing over the last few hundred years, because we've reached the point to where technology can help us in a lot of ways that we don't need a workforce of 100 people anymore. And so we find ourselves in this interesting time, and those of us humans that channel, into the past of, Atlantis and other higher civilizations and things like that, we've gotten there through this process that we're going through right now. To create the heaven on earth is a continuous process. Because what happens when everything's going our way, when we have everything we want, we get bored. We get self-destructive. We do various different things because our energy is meant to expand. And it's interesting how people that I've sat with and had the luxury of calling my friend and colleague, that have reached points in their life of success. And they usually said that point of success, it was the catalyst they needed to be who they were, because the success didn't make them, their failure did. Them taking people and things and opportunities for granted, thinking that they had arrived, thinking that they were this, that, or the other, then the universe gets to show up and say, oh, well, you ready for this? This is going to show up in a different way because it's all unique. And that's the hard part, is not to be transactional, right? And say, well, I tried this one time this way and it worked out, so this is the only way that I'm ever going to do it. Well, then it's probably going to work out for you until it doesn't anymore, and then you're going to need to find a new way. And that's part of the dark night of the soul, or the egoic death, or all these teachings of the spiritual communities and learnings and teachings, is just that. Is you surrender your identity, you surrender how you've shown up in life, and you recreate from a pure place of love, of curiosity, of genuine love and concern, both for yourself and other people, because there has to be sacred irony in it, which is sacred reciprocity, because it's an exchange of energy. And that's what we're talking about. It's all energy. Any relationship with ourselves, our health, our creators, our spirit guides, all these different things. It's all energy. And it's how we filter it through our minds that allows us to move in different or similar ways. So breaking out of a pattern is just realizing that I'm only going to, I'm going to do this for a period of time, and then I have to let it go, because that's going to allow me to experience it. I am grateful that I had a severe cocaine addiction. I'm super grateful. Now, I don't go to meetings and I don't do all that, and I don't beat myself up, and I don't text everybody every day about how I'm a recovering, addict and, all that kind of stuff, because I am not identified in that way with myself anymore. I have addictive behaviors because that is a habit that had some success, and that's what happened. That I was introduced to this stuff at a time where I was growing successful and it seemed like a good thing to do, and it did until it wasn't anymore. And when I found myself at rock bottom after destroying my sinus cavities, with the money issues, with having the house robbed, starting to get paranoid, not taking care of myself nutritionally, not getting enough sleep, all those things, came a great awakening, to the point to where I have absolutely no desire to do those things anymore. Now, will I do coca leaf? Will I do plant medicines as part of a ceremony or something else? Yes, because that is a controlled environment for an expansion that I cannot do beyond that plant ally. So there's a purpose for it. We're all consumers. It's just, what are we consuming and how does it affect us? And when you realize that adversity, when you realize that challenge, as you realize that only open, authentic, and vulnerable communication can truly bring in the right people for your life for all the right reasons, all that kind of stuff, do we really truly awaken? It is very interesting to me how much spiritual work I do when I am working my day jobs. Not because I'm showing up as a spiritual teacher, because I get to practice, I get to listen, I get to be humble. I work through all these challenges that people are having on a daily basis, and it has nothing to do with my identity. And in fact, Eckhart Tolle, the other day, I shared it on social media if you're a part of that channel, was talking about how we're all spiritual teachers and it's needed. But, there's a thing there. If you walk around calling yourself and identifying yourself in life as a spiritual teacher, you will egoically separate yourself and elevate yourself in ways, and not always in the best of ways. And it was very interesting to me to hear, his analogy. He talks about when he's traveling, for example, how he usually just says that he's an author or something like that, and it's got nothing to do with, that he's a spiritual teacher or anything like that, because that's what a teacher does. A teacher creates. And one of the platforms that he does it through is through books, and that's how we do it. Or as a practitioner, through sessions, or through enhancement programs, or, any of that other thing. They're just containers. That's part of the energy, and what you get out of it is what you put into it. I love taking classes and getting certified in new modalities and new ways of thinking and that kind of stuff, because it allows me to expand my egoic consciousness of what I know is possible, of different ways of looking at things. The hard part is having all these different lenses of what and ways of looking at it without knowing myself and being grounded in, is this the right thing for me to be, for me to do, because of the effect that will have on others, the planet, myself, because that's always been my purpose in life, is to help leave this place better than when I found it before I came here. How do I do that? In all the different ways that I can. I try to be open. I try to be generous. I try to be kind. And you hear me saying, I try. I'm pretty consistent. But what I realized a few years ago, when I was pushed out of balance and I did lose control of my emotions, which actually helped me tremendously deepen connection within myself to overcome a lot of the stuff that I was carrying that I wasn't conscious of, even though I had been doing all this work. Because that's the thing. The ego is always going to make you look at something that's going to keep you from actually healing, because then you can always have some problem, something that you have to overcome, that you have to do, that you got to be, and the whole point of all of this is aloha, unity. We all have ideas and thoughts and feelings of the best ways to move forward, either for us or our projection and judgments of other people. But that is always a reflection of both polarities of our consciousness, of the source, of the manifested, and the void, the potential. That allows us to grow, and allows us to expand, and allows us to evolve. And when we try to control energy, we can only control what we give. And then how we respond to what is given to us. For an example, there was a gentleman last night as I was driving the route, New Year's Eve. It's raining, it's dark. And someone fell and got hurt. I picked up someone else's route, as I had already finished. And the way the driveway was cut, I got off his driveway a little bit and left a mark. And I went and finished my deliveries in the neighborhood. And as I was on my way out, he was standing at his driveway. And he was kind of upset, and because he, I guess, had several issues, and he even bought these really big boulders on the edges of the driveway to try to keep the delivery drivers from running over it, running through his grass, because the way he poured his driveway, he only has to make a right-hand turn to get out of the subdivision. So when they poured it, they didn't really pour it with the idea of someone coming from the other side. So it's really sharp, and so it's impossible for those big trucks to be able to turn without going off the grass. And so he was sharing with me all the challenges that he's had over the last months, and how he's tried to contact Amazon, and Amazon didn't want to do anything or help him in any way or make any changes or any of these different things. And he was telling me all the different drivers that he talked to and all the reasons why we're instructed to do a certain thing in a certain way, and we've all been following that, but it keeps ending up with people driving in his yard. And so we sat and literally talked for half an hour. And I just listened to him as of course, I still had packages to deliver, and, I still had to get my thing on, but I listened to him with absolute compassion. I gave him my phone number and said, give me your address. I'll see what I can do. And, bump it into I'll talk to our logistics company and then see what we can do as far as moving it up the chain to Amazon. And by the end of it, he's thanking me. He's wishing me a happy New Year's. Was grateful to meet me. Left me this beautiful message on my phone, with his address, and you know, um, and it's part of that. Now, the truth was, I was in a place where I was in one of their electric vans, which I'm not a fan of. I had a really tough day. And, the last thing that I wanted to be doing is um, that. But that's what showed up. And that's the reason I'm sharing the story, not because I'm special, because I'm not. We're all the same. We just have different ways of expressing that uniqueness, that specialness. But equality, equity, means we're all the same. No one deserves anything more than another, and we all deserve to live a happy, healthy, and harmonious lifestyle. That also means our animal brothers and sisters. That also means the microbiomes. That also means the bacteria and the viruses and all that stuff. Because for whatever reason, we've been put in this place, and all of that makes this world happen and allows us to grow. Thanks, Mark. And it's the energies that of our relationships that can be nourishing. And if the outside relationships in our lives aren't nourishing, then we have to learn how to nourish ourselves in spite of that, without getting bitter, without separating or dividing, because people can't give you what they don't have. And if they don't have it yet, then that's your opportunity to be a healer, to be a teacher, to be a light worker, to be however you choose to identify yourself, to make yourself feel and look and act so much better than those who are just choosing to live the way they're choosing to live, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. Because that's how you clear your karma of your subconscious, is you allow that crap to come up and you work with it. It's energy. Step into the resistance. When I'm giving or getting a massage and we find tension, or we find the fascia, the frozen muscle, and we apply pressure to it, it hurts. I'm doing it right now to my chest. It doesn't feel good. But as we can sit in it, the more we sit in it, then all of a sudden it relaxes and it goes away. Just like that. And then we feel better. And that's the same thing as our mind. That's the same way with our emotions, the same thing with our body. And why, practices like embodiment practices like breath work and tantra and qigong and tai chi and all these very martial arts and even exercise helps move that stagnant energy so we feel better. But if we don't take time to be still, then we can't be aware of where the energy is stagnant, because we're too busy moving and running chasing towards something. And we see that present in all living things. They run towards pleasure, or perceived pleasure and away from perceived pain. And there's even walks of life that learn how to master, their levels of control and pain through what would seem to most people torture and punishment and abuse, certain lifestyles. And for those who choose to walk that path, phenomenal. I've met some beautiful people in that lifestyle. I've also met some people that were still dancing with their demons. But that's no different than any other walk of life I've ever walked in. Even in the spiritual community. And the more challenging awakening that I've come into is when I was developing my mental self, my identity in a spiritual way. I had all the teachings and perceptions and alibis and excuses and ways to look at things that sometimes dismissed my responsibility for the fact that I wasn't showing up the way that I wanted to be showing up in my life. And I allowed my love and compassion for others to prevent me from making certain choices or doing certain things, because at that time the timing wasn't right. And how did I know? Well, I was in that moment at that time, and I didn't feel that it was time. I love that teaching about Eckhart Tolle. He talks about, whatever you're going through, go into it deep. You feel lazy? Sit, be lazy. Go into it. It doesn't matter how long, because eventually you'll get out of it. You'll have to. And, we've created a structure where a lot of people don't feel like they have to be a good person, or they don't feel like they have to show up, or they don't feel they don't have to be this way or that way, or, whatever, because some circumstance in their life. And as long as they feel and think that way, or believe that way, there's nothing that we can do as light workers, or, anything as far as reaching them at a mental level. It's just showing up. And if we have the opportunity to walk with them in life, show them a different way of walking, and allow the natural desire for the ego, to want to grow. Because what happens is, I in my belief system, is our soul, our whole self, will eventually make things so uncomfortable in our ego that we have to make a change, that we have to do something. Now, the goal is to make those shifts prior to the have to. Those of us that have had injuries, we've had to understand what it's like to have to depend on somebody else, because maybe we weren't able to do it on our own. Like when I fractured my back, I couldn't do certain things because I was injured. And so I had to rely on those ones that were around me to help me through that time. Now, once I healed and I don't need that help anymore, now I don't need the help, so I can do it for myself. And that's part of the responsibility. I've talked about one of my mentors, David Taylor. That guy, I don't know how many thousands of lives he changed by being him, who he was. And just being a high school teacher. In fact, I just bumped into some people at Amazon that had similar stories as mine. And they graduated many years after I did. And he was there many years prior to me being there. And in our alumni Facebook group or whatever, when I've shared those stories, there was no shortage of contributions of what that man did for other people, and the impact that he had in so many lives as a high school teacher. And anyway, one of the things that he shared with me that really resonated and stuck with me was that the universe, God, creator, however you want to look at it, he used the word creator. Um, um, he's a creator, will not give you anything that you can't handle yourself, because God won't do anything for you that you can do for yourself. So a lot of people that walk a spiritual path that are just like, God, please help. I'm struggling with my emotions. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling, with all of these things. Creator is there to give support, to give nourishment, to show you the way through it. But if you're not actually integrating and applying the lessons that you're learning through those challenges, then you're going to continue to have that. To be a giver, you also have to be able to receive. So in your relationships, if you're the one that's always giving, and then you stop giving, that person's going to be angry with you and probably leave your life, distance themselves from you because they're no longer getting what they're used to. And while they're on their healing journey, they're going to blame you. Because you did one thing for a while, then you stopped, or you shifted, or whatever. I know I've done this on both. I've been on the giving and the receiving side of this, and I share this a lot with my friends and my colleagues and my clients. It's, if we're trying to move, if we're trying to create a better reality than the one that we're living in, and the people that you're walking with are just reminding you of who you've been and who you'll always be, because they don't want to see you in another way, then you do need to get a little space, because that's hard. It's hard to constantly be that self-motivated to go through that resistance. But if you can go through that resistance, you're going to be almost unbreakable. You're going to be so resilient because you trusted in here what it was. You trusted your dreams, you trusted your visions, you trusted your imagination, or guides, or however you choose to define it. Now, I do know from my own personal experience that I've heard voices and I've heard things, but very rarely has it not been in the same voice as I hear all my other thoughts. There's just a different energy behind it, which made me hear it differently. It was usually a little calmer. And it was more like trust, have faith. And as I continue to walk this path and those things, there's so many blessings that show up. There's so many synchronicities. There's so many people. There's so many experiences. There's so like it just keeps showing up, and you're just like, oh my God, this is lovely, right? Not to say that there aren't challenges and there isn't things to be worked through, because we as a humanity haven't reached that point yet. And that's why it's important to have resilience and strength. Right, Mark? Mark says a person can't give up on trust and belief. That's absolutely true because there's something that they trust and they believe in. When I was going through a situation, many times I'm like, I know I can take this right now. I've been through similar challenges or struggles, so I'm willing to sit in it while the other person is freaking out, having challenges. And if we're able to communicate, we can usually work our way through it. Now, if they're dead set on who they are or how they want to be or how they want this or how they want that, and they're not open and vulnerable to receiving it in other ways, then they won't. Some of the strongest love I've ever have received was not pleasant. It didn't feel good because they were trying to course correct me based on their fears and insecurities, not mine. They wanted to prepare me for. And life, I wasn't prepared in many aspects. But that's why I learned from it. Because if I was prepared, I would just move through it just like anything else, just like you would. Pro athletes train every day, not just for the game, not just for the Super Bowl, for football, not for whatever contest, competition. That's not what you're training for. You train to compete against yourself. That way, no matter what happens, you're always centered. If you have to train harder to beat somebody else, and then you beat them, well, now you have a new training regiment that makes you that much better than if you would have stuck with the old one. So that is part of growth. Yeah, you're right, Mark. We do need to be less reactive and just sit and let things happen and let them naturally unfold. I was reading something earlier today. It said, ego is always in a rush. And I've known this philosophy for a long time. Ego is always in a rush because there's a sense of one day I won't be here, where our higher self, our intuition, however we want to look at that, isn't in a rush because it knows if we don't get it done this lifetime, we'll get it done next time. It's like doing the dishes or something, right? I don't feel like doing them right now, but I know they're not going away. So either I can convince myself to do them now, or I'm just going to have to do them later. Either way, they're going to have to get done. And that's all. I mean, that's life. We either step into it or we wait. But either way, we're going to have the experience. And getting back to the energy, the commonality of energy is there's a dual polarity. That's the container. If you think of a battery, you have the negative and the positive, but where they come together, that's where the spark happens. That's where the magic happens. That's how life happens. That's how everything happens. A relationship with ourselves, with invisible creatures and characters, and real life. When I mean real life, being able to sense it with all the senses, not just the mental senses. But I found out for me a long time ago that there was only one way I could find my heart, and that was to lose my mind, which meant my identity, my belief system. I had to surrender all the things, the people, the habits, all the things that mattered to me. I had to let them go so then they could actually show up in the way they were meant to. It's like the relationship with my son. The more I try to force a relationship on my son because I want to spend time with him, right? The more he has the opportunity to push back. But the more I just show up and say, I'm here. Here's my wants, my desires, and my hopes for you and for us, the more we have a collaborative way of doing it. And since I started doing that, we spend a lot more time together. We talk a lot more too. We don't talk daily like we used to because every time I call him, it was the how you doing? How is this? How is that? How we didn't have much to talk about. But by giving them a little bit of time, now when we get together, we actually have like quality time. We get to spend more time together and do the things. And I find that to be true in a lot of relationships. If we're constantly sharing our life story every day with somebody, or we're walking with them every day, that was a hard lesson for me. When you're spending every waking moment with somebody, you don't have a whole lot to talk about because you're walking it. And I mean, unless you're, trying to create something, or you're asking about the past, or desiring to create the desire to create the future. Yeah, isn't that interesting, Mark? You gotta lose yourself to find yourself, because we're not a sock. You know what I mean? Like, we can be anything we want. That's the beauty of being human. We're not rooted like a tree. I have learned that some trees can walk and move and stuff like that, but most trees, you plant them, that's where they stay. Maybe they procreate and they make more and it expands, but originally, where you plant something's where it stays, and we don't have that as human beings. We can walk in all these different lifestyles and try on all these different things and travel all over the world and try different cultures and try different foods and that kind of stuff. And that for me is fun. I'm adventurous. I like to explore what life has to offer. And then there's other people that don't. They want to have the same food every week. They want to have a routine. They want to have it nailed down, that kind of stuff. And that's cool too. It's your life. But is it giving you the energy to be the best version of yourself? And not in an egoic way, like, oh my God, I'm going to doing all these things. I'm meditating weekly, daily. I'm listening to all these things. I'm watching all these teachers. I'm going to the gym. I'm eating healthy. Me. My experiences. Da 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 da. That's just the ego talking. I'm guilty of that. I've done that too. And when I surrendered all my spiritual practices, when I surrendered my meditations, when I surrendered the breath work, when I surrendered to just showing up each and every day in the best way I know how, things just got so much simpler for me. In some ways. And other ways, they're still challenging, which is great because that means I'm still alive and I'm still growing. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to expand on this, because I doubt I'm going to be the same person that I am today tomorrow. There's going to be consistencies. But I think it was, and well, not but, and I think it was Martin Luther King who said, most men die by 21. We just don't bury them till later in life. Because people quit believing that it can be better than what it is. Your relationships can and will get better and better and better and better and better and better and deeper and better and better and better. And then they'll get boring. You'll take them for granted, or they'll take you for granted. And then there'll be conflict. And then you have the opportunity to come back together and mend, and you'll be stronger than you were before. That to me is unconditional love. Showing up for each other in the best ways we know how. Holding space. Calling people out on their stuff sometimes is part of love. I need that sometimes. Not that I always want it, right? But sometimes I need it. Why? Because we try to cope. We try to get comfortable, right? And some of us are comfortable in discomfort. And that's profound. When you realize that your comfort comes from discomfort, ooh boy, are you in for evolution. Because then all you have to do is let go. It's not easy. It's simple. Let go of the things that aren't bringing you to the highest version of how you want to show up in life. When it's all over, and maybe we're lucky and it just lights out and we don't have time to sit and ponder on the experiences and the ways that we've lived life. But I think for the majority of us, we don't have that opportunity. I think most of us, from my experience, that once you have an illness, especially if it's terminal, you start thinking and reflecting a lot about your life and what mattered and how it showed up. And that's why a lot of people that overcome their terminal diseases totally radically change their lives in many, 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 many ways, because they realize how precious this opportunity that we have, that we call life. And many of us are so busy trying to maintain this image and this society and this culture that actually creates separation, whether it's the fashion industry to government to business to whatever. It seems to separate us, but it doesn't. It's all part of the same thing. It's just different frequencies and it's all interconnected, because good couldn't exist without bad, and bad couldn't exist without good. But really, it comes down to the way that you choose to vibrate with it, the way you choose to think about the energy, the way you choose to feel the energy, and the way you choose to act out of that energy. And for that, I'm going to end the show today. Much love and blessings. Aloha. Thanks again for tuning in. I want to send out so many heartfelt blessings for this year. May we find the happiness, health, and harmony that we all authentically desire to create the heaven on earth that we all know is possible. And that's why we get out of bed each and every day. And maybe we work on it that day, maybe we don't. but we each have an opportunity each day to move one step closer to that idealized version of the happy, healthy, and harmonious lifestyle. So much love and gratitude for everything you are, everything you do, everything you choose to be. If you would like to learn more about how we could walk together, how we could work together, check out the website, enhancingyourworld.com. I do recommend that you sign up for a our free online community. It's a social media platform. And the goal is to share inspirational content, as well as advice and insights and methodologies, and hold space for one another as we are enhancing our world together. So much love and gratitude. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Appreciate you as well. Thank you for your friendship. It's been a blessing, and all the love and support that you've shown. Truly remarkable. Very grateful. Thank you for helping me be a better version of myself, because I couldn't be here without what I've learned from you. So thank you for that. And check out everything, all the information on enhancingyourworld.com. Go ahead. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. And you can check out all the replays and everything on the website, enhancingyourworld.com. Also on Facebook, The Enhance Your World Show, and on YouTube, which that link is in the description. So thanks again. Much love and many blessings. And we will talk with you next week. Bye-bye.